So Set and Horus were just revealed moments ago, along with some other things on the patch notes show for 6.5. This is the Reddit patch notes, as the actual patch notes aren't out yet, but when they do come out, I'll link them in the description of the video for like exact damage numbers and stuff if you guys want to look at that, but let's get right into it. So Hi-Rez made a mobile game, it's called Smite Blitz, Google it, I'm not going to cover it here. So I'll cover the balance changes and some Xing Tian fixes quickly before we get into Set and Horus, as they're the main thing for this show. But before that, here's some skins. Alright, so Xing Tian basically got a ton of fixes and quality of life changes this patch. No actual buffs or reworked abilities, just tweaks and changes to make him feel better, such as the leap being an actual leap now that can go over walls and things, instead of acting like a dash as it did before. If any Xing Tian mains want to read his full changes, then pause the video here. Alright, so on to the balance updates. So there wasn't anything too major changed this patch, especially when you compare it to the last round of changes that we're still kind of settling into. Ganesha was buffed quite a bit actually. I was under the impression he was in a pretty good spot, but apparently not. He got 1 extra second on the buff on his 1, the extra damage that is. His silence now gives magical defense as well as the physical defense it already gave while channeling, and his dash got a small damage buff. Personally, I don't think these were really needed, but Ganesh as a god I don't mind seeing in the meta, he's pretty fun, so I'm fine with this. Hu Yi can now move and turn his camera when casting the ult. For those unaware that don't play a lot of Hu Yi, he used to kind of root himself for about half a second when casting this, so it's just a sort of quality of life change there, so he can do things while, like, move around and stuff, juke things while he's casting this. Izanami buffs? I have to say I'm less happy with these than I was with Ganesha. I really dislike when Izanami is good, but I guess she has been out of the meta for a long time, so a lot of Izanami mains will be happy about this. Her passive is essentially easier to stack up. It still caps at the same number of stacks and you'll still get the same kind of benefits, but it just requires less health loss to get to those max stacks. A slight slow increase early on for the 2, and some mostly quality of life post-fire delay changes for the dash, which I'm actually all for. Her dash is super awkward, even I'm willing to admit that. Yorm was sort of buff nerfed. His auto's got a significant damage buff both at the base and the per level scaling. I really don't think this change was needed. Yorm is pretty strong and seeing a lot of play as it is. People just need to figure him out a bit, I think. I'd have preferred them to wait on this, like a couple more patches before doing this, but here we are. Small nerf to his clouds duration when consuming them. And then also he doesn't lose the cooldown of Bellow if it's interrupted, but he also lost the protections. I think it is better this way. So yeah, like I mentioned, a sort of buff nerf for him this patch, but an overall buff I think, especially with the auto attack changes. So Arthur got sort of nerfed a little bit. He definitely needs more than this. He's literally the best god in the game with a 100% pick ban rate. A little nerf to his 4B is not really going to change too much. But what they basically did here was nerf the slam damage when he knocks you back to the ground quite a bit, but then buff the per slash damage while you're in the sky. So overall, it does a similar amount of damage if you get hit for the full duration, a little bit less I think. But if you beads it early, you take much less damage from the slam. So basically beadsing this might be worth it now, where before it really wasn't. It was almost a waste of your beads, to be honest. But yeah, as I said, Arthur definitely needs more nerfs. And finally, before Set and Horus, we'll look at some item balance. So Icheville got a cost increase from 2450 to 2600. I think this is definitely warranted. You've seen a lot of ADCs rushing straight into Icheville and just ignoring like Devourer's Gauntlets or something like that, just because of how powerful and how much of a swing it makes when you're boxing another hunter with this item. Like if supports leave lane and you have Icheville boots and the enemy's stacking up Devourers with boots, you're going to annihilate them. That 60% attack speed swing is super crazy. So it definitely warranted for a cost increase on this, I think. Runeforged got a cost increase and a physical power nerf. I have to say this seems a little bit much for Runeforged because it wasn't seeing that much play, only on like specific gods that utilised it quite well. Whereas Blackthorn, as we'll see here, was seeing play on a lot more sort of like wide variety of gods, like most assassins or warriors could make use of this, so I'm glad they're nerfing the health down a little bit. 100 health off it seems pretty fair. And Haste and Katana's getting hit, seemingly mostly because there's a lot of Baka, Arachne and Kali and those sort of gods running around the meta right now, and they're trying to sort of bring them down, like bring them all down without nerfing them all individually, so they've hit Haste and Katana. Personally, I'd rather see them hit the gods individually with this. Like, I think Bakasura needs more nerfs, and nerfing Haste and Katana isn't the way I would like to see them do it, but I guess if they want to take 4 gods out of the meta with nerfing this one item, they can do that. So yeah, 100 gold cost increase and 5% attack speed reduction. It's not going to kill the item by any means, but it is a small nerf to all 4 or 5 of the gods that use this item. Alright, so on to what you've all been waiting for, Set and Horus. So I'll cover Set first, since on the patch notes he's first. So Set's kit is largely based around spawning clones of himself that he can do various things with, and he's also quite auto-attack focused, but like he's almost like an ability auto-attack hybrid, similar to maybe a Nemesis. So his passive is an attack speed increase that caps at a maximum stat count of 10 and lasts 3 seconds. I believe it gives 3% attack speed per cap, but it doesn't list it here, but I think it is 3%. So up to 30% free attack speed from the passive if you can stack it up. And this also interacts with his ultimate later on, as we'll cover. So I'll talk about his 2 first, because his 1 is kind of pointless to talk about if you haven't covered the 2. So his 2 basically spawns a clone of himself made of sand. These clones will be completely untargetable and will stay for what seems like around 10 or 15 seconds, but they never set a specific duration for these. And the clones will stand still when summoned, and if enemies come near enough to them, they will attack them. And similar to Pele, Set can store 2 charges of this, so if he wants to, he can spawn 2 clones, like, not simultaneously, but straight after each other, basically. And then obviously, these interact with the rest of Set's kit a little bit, mostly with the 1, as we'll cover now. Oh, and Set can also have a maximum of 8 spawns at a time. So the 1 is Skewer. It's sort of hard to explain, so I'll put up like a clip of it being used on the patch notes show here, because that will explain it way better than me reading a wall of text can. But basically, it has a targeter, and then like a line targeter, and in the middle of it is where, like, sort of a point where all of his clones will dash straight through the point. It's really hard to explain, so like hopefully you can see what's happening on screen here. And then they'll essentially do like the clones will do like line damage as you like sort of dash through the middle of it. That's probably a really terrible explanation of it, so I hope the footage kind of is self-explanatory, because it's a really hard ability to just explain on paper. Alright, his 3 Sandstorm is a little bit easier to explain on paper. So essentially, Set conjures like an AoE Sandstorm around him that will deal tick damage to everyone and sort of have a mini blind. It's not like getting hit by a Ra beam, but it'll blind you like a little bit for any enemies that are in the area. And Set can also target one of his clones when he casts this ability, and he'll teleport and then spawn the Sandstorm. And the Sandstorm will follow him, of course. And then finally, Set's ultimate kind of ties this all together. So this ultimate is basically just a plain steroid, but it does a lot of other things with the way it interacts with his kit. So Set sort of grows like spikes out of his back, it looks pretty cool. And then every 4 auto attacks, the enemy will kind of explode and do additional bonus damage. And it will also heal Set and immediately gain a charge of the spawn of Set, so he can spawn more. And if he's already at the maximum spawn count for Set, it will just spawn the clone next to him. So this is really where his kit kind of ties together. Like, you could often sort of dive in, is what they were showing on the patch note show. Like, you'll dive in on someone, and then with a little bit of attack speed, you can stack this up super quickly, spawn like 6 or 7 clones, and then send them all through someone and burst them down. Like, that seems to be his sort of main combo. Like, you'll wear them down a little bit with auto attacks using this, burst them a little bit, and then do the final killing blow with like a massive charge through of like all of your spawns, like all at once. So that seems like the general way he's going to be going in and like assassinating a carrier. And then after that, he'll either reset and wait for cooldowns or just like go in depending on how he's feeling, really. So he seems like he will be sort of built in. I think it will be best with like an auto attack ability kind of hybrid, almost like a Nemesis build like you might see. Because he does certainly need some attack speed, but I think he also needs some ability damage, because Skewer seems like a really important ability where he dashes all of his clones through, and that will obviously increase with power. And he also does get a lot of attack speed from his ultimate. His ultimate removes the attack speed cap on his passive, so he can stack up as much attack speed as he wants for like the duration of the ultimate. But I think he will need a little bit of attack speed in his build, but also some power and CDR as well. Overall, Set looks really cool, but I am more excited for Horus, as I am a warrior main, but yeah, Set definitely looks really cool. Alright, so moving on to Horus. So they said they've designed him as a sort of more guardian-like supportive warrior, which I think is definitely really cool, because we don't really have a lot of warriors that are aimed specifically at being supportive. Like, some warriors work in support, but they're usually like sort of just more aggressive, whereas this guy's almost like a physical guardian, sort of like we have magical warriors in the guardian class, so I think that's really cool. He seems like he will work both in support and in solo though, maybe even in jungle, but I think his damage is probably a little low to do jungle, but we'll see. And he's generally about supporting his teammates, but he can definitely hold his own as well. So essentially his passive is a stacking buff that gives him protections every time he's hit by an instance of damage. And then eventually these stacks will fade, and when they do fade, he gains a burst heal. So his 1 is sort of a 2-stage ability. So it's a small AoE knock up around you for the first stage. You'll just spin around and knock people up that are near you. And then the second stage is like a line damage attack that will slow. And you don't have to fire these at the same target or simultaneously. You could knock one person up and then throw the slow at someone else if you're needing to like peel for 2 people, or like peel 2 people off of 1 person, for example. And I really do like the sort of 2-stage effect of this ability, where you can like, you know, choose to do different things with each sort of charge of the ability, almost like each attack of the ability you can be sent at different people. I like that. His 2 is also somewhat of a 2-stage ability, but not quite in the same way. Essentially, he'll dash forward, and then if that dash hits a god, which you'll usually want to be doing, but you can just dash away. If that dash hits a god, god, he'll stun for 1.25 seconds flat, and he'll then cleave, hitting enemies in a cone in front of him and reducing their protections for 3 seconds. And similar to with the 1, you can dash and stun one person, but then cleave different people. So you might be looking to dash in and stun the enemy frontline, but then you can cleave the enemy backliners and reduce their protection, stuff like that. So that seems really cool to me. His 3 is where his Guardian playstyle definitely comes in. Like, up until now, he'd fit the traditional warrior style, but his 3 is definitely very sort of Guardian-like. So essentially, Horus can choose anyone, a god or a minion, and fly to them, and then have like a health restoration effect in an area around them, and gains protections for 3 seconds, both you and the allies affected. So I initially thought this could only target gods, and it was going to trigger me because it'd be useless in solo, but you can target minions with this, so you can heal your own wave and heal yourself in solo, so it does have some kind of self-sustain in that regard. But obviously where this is most potent is probably in duo lane, where you can protect your carry with it. And of course in team fights you can fly to someone and heal them. Alright, and his ultimate. This is the coolest ability out of all 8 that we've seen for both gods, definitely. So similar to Set's 1, this one's really hard to just like describe in words, so obviously I will have it playing on screen so you can kind of see how it works yourself. Set essentially sends like a ghost vision of himself into the sky that can fly around looking for a location to land. It can then select a location and will channel for 2 seconds, and then any allies in the circle that sort of Horus left on the ground after he went up in his ghost form will be teleported to you. So essentially you as Horus will charge down, hit the ground, knock all enemies away, and then any allies that were within that circle will be teleported with you, and it will also give you and anyone you teleported or anyone in the area you are landing a health shield. Yeah, I know it's a lot to take in, so hopefully the footage explains it better than I can. So this seems like a super powerful way for like obviously rotations. You can even get your teammates out with this. The health shield it provides is pretty damn insane for like peeling for your carries, things like that. And you could also make some really aggressive plays teleporting like your assassin and your warrior straight into the backline and knocking all enemies away and stuff like that. It seems really cool. I'm definitely going to be playing a lot of Horus when this releases. Even for like objective fights and stuff, like if the enemies are grouped up on a Gold Fury and you're in mid lane as Horus with like 2 of your teammates, you can ult from mid lane straight to Gold Fury, knock everyone away, teleport 2 of your teammates in with a massive health shield. Like, this just seems really fucking cool. As you can probably tell, I'm pretty excited for this ability. But yeah, that's it for the patch notes. I've been trying to keep it fairly short and simple, and of course if you do want specific numbers on Horus and Set, I'll try and link the patch notes in the description when they do come out, because they're not out as of recording this. Super excited for Horus, pretty excited for Set as well, but I'll be playing mostly Horus I would imagine. And yeah, I guess Arthur got some nerfs. Not really though. But yeah, that's it from me. Have a great day, and peace out you nerds.